Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Ratanas, and welcome to Reading Through the Bible in 1 year. We are starting the book of Judges today, and so we are reading Judges chapters 1 through 4 today. And so here we are. We're starting a new book after the death of Joshua. The people of Israel, they began this downward spiral. Israel begins to adopt the corrupt practices of the Canaanites that they had actually failed to drive out of the land. And so this leads to a cycle of sin that constantly repeats itself through the book of Judges. And this spiral, it led Israel into compromise, into sin, and finally bondage to their enemies. And so the big question is why does this matter? And how did it even happen? How did they go from the amazing victories presented to us in the book of Joshua to the despair and defeat constantly found in the book of Judges? And I think one thing it comes down to is partial obedience. Partial obedience to God, in reality, is full disobedience to God. So let me say that again. Partial obedience to God, in reality, is full disobedience to God. Judges chapter 1, it reveals the continued faithlessness of the tribe. Each tribe is described as failing to drive out the inhabitants of the land in their given allotment. And so I encourage you to read through the end of Judges chapter 1 and notice how many times the Israelites didn't drive out the people of the land that they were supposed to in obedience to God. Starting in verse 21, we see the Benjamites, however, did not drive out the Jebusites. Verse 27, but Manasseh did not drive out the people. Verse 28, they pressed the Canaanites into forced labor, but they never drove them out completely. Verse 29, nor did the Ephraim, but the Canaanites continued to live among them. Verse 30, neither did the Zebulun, but the Canaanites lived among them. Verse 31, nor did Asher. Verse 32, the Asherites lived among the Canaanite inhabitants of the land because they did not drive them out. Verse 33 through 36, we see the same thing. They weren't forced out, but they forced the Canaanites into hard labor. It's a repetitive picture, but it gives us a very, very clear picture of what's happening. They didn't completely drive them out, but is this okay? Because they forced them into hard labor. Sometimes we read this knowing it's not fully what God said, but at least they tried, right? They tried to battle. It wasn't a full rejection of God's word. I mean, come on, it's not like they're living in paradise. They were forced into hard labor. Is this okay? Is this right? Partial or half-hearted obedience? Do we believe it's better than none? Is it better than no obedience? And that's what we should call it, partial or half-hearted, but what does God actually say about it? God actually says it's 100% full disobedience to Him. And that's kind of hard to hear, right? The truth is, if you aren't doing what God has said, what He has commanded of us, what is revealed to us in His Word, it is full disobedience. If it's not full obedience, then that is fully rejected. God even confronted these people in chapter 2 saying, I said I will never break my covenant with you, and you shall not make a covenant with the people of this land, but you should break down their idols. Yet you have disobeyed me. Why have you done this? What we see and what we would call partial obedience, God called full disobedience. Full disobedience. And I think that we could actually wrap it up right here, but as I read on, I was really burdened by what I read in verse 10 of chapter 2. Another generation grew up who neither knew the Lord or what He had done for Israel. And the following verses after that, it talks about the Israelites doing evil in the eyes of the Lord, that they served and worshiped other gods. The partial obedience of one generation, it turned into a whole nother generation who knew neither the Lord nor what He had done for them. And so our full obedience, our full immediate obedience right here, right now, it matters. The next generation will either know and remember who God is, or they will reject and forget who God is. And so this is something for us to think and pray on today. I know it feels a little bit heavy, a little bit weighty, but I encourage you that we want to be the generation that lives in full obedience to what the Lord has done, what the Lord is saying, so that the next generation will know the Lord and will remember what he has done for us. And so I hope you guys have a great day. We love you.